Hello, everybody, and welcome to Growth Uncut. And we are doing our series on Justice 2.0, which is all about upgrading justice in lots of different ways. And today you're going to get a really great insight into a load of ways in which we can upgrade justice, thinking about gambling harms, but also lived experience and how we can embrace that more fully and really, I guess, change the system, change the mindset, but also invest in the things that really matter. So I am absolutely privileged to be here with Ben. Would you like to introduce yourself, Ben?
Of course. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here. So my name's Ben, and I have lived experience of gambling harm and also the criminal justice system, resulting in a 9.5-month stint in prison, being released on June the 3rd of this year. So yeah, I'm an advocate for change around gambling harms, around the criminal justice system, and excited to share my insights.
Wonderful. And talking a little bit about your advocacy role, why is it that you are particularly passionate? I know you talk about your lived experience, so it's personal from the sounds of it. Why is this an important thing for them to listen to?
So it needs to have a national buy-in. It needs to have a public buy-in to have any form of change. Now, a lot of problems with issues such as gambling is that you don't realise it's a problem until you're among it. And I was actually quite culprit, to being one of those people. But for 14 years, I experienced harm, and the last 4 years of those 14 is when I committed fraud by abuse of position. Isolated, own, nowhere to turn to, not really sure of speaking out. Am I going to lose this? Am I going to lose that? And ultimately, that's what happened. So I lost my job, house, partner, everything in the space of a week. So that's where the passion and drive comes from the gambling side, is I don't want anyone to ever go through that again. And if we can prevent somebody from going through that, great. But if we can't, and we catch them a bit later on, how can we then support them to ensure they're safeguarded at all times? My criminal justice passion, linking the two together, is I think it was a shambles from the start in terms of criminal justice. So I handed myself into the police in August of 2020, and that investigation went on for 4 years. I was released under investigation for 4 years. During that investigation, I was never screened for gambling addiction, even though that was linked to my index. I was never signposted to any form of support, treatment, or help. I did all that myself. I then went to prison, and again, no screening, no understanding. I even spoke to some prison officers, and they said, well, why did you gamble? That's stupid. Like, that was the reaction that come through. There's just that sort of lack of understanding. And now that I'm in probation, I've already been signed off probation because they've said, there's nothing we can do because you're cured. They use the word cured. They don't look at recovery as a long-term thing. Because I haven't gambled in 5 years now, I'm cured of gambling. So there's a huge area of work here of linking up the entire criminal justice system in terms of police, prison, probation, with a clear pathway to referral of support for individuals with gambling harm, because ultimately all of those missed opportunities can lead people to have lapses, relapse, other mental health sort of concerns. And it is that wider systemic approach that's needed. And the criminal justice system just doesn't have that buy-in at the moment.
So for you, there's something about if that buy-in and engagement happens and people acknowledge I guess the magnitude of the issue as well, isn't it? There's something about, we did some work around gambling and culture within prisons, and I didn't fully appreciate the extent of it because it is really quite hidden a lot of the time. People don't talk about it, people don't screen for it. So you don't understand how big this issue is, I guess. But for me, there's something about people kind of waking up to that, engaging with this process, and therefore coming together to bring about that kind of change. So that whole systems approach, yeah?
Absolutely. And I mean, the work that's been done from Gamble Aware on their stigma campaign, that reached so many people of let's open up about gambling, talk about gambling, and the work of the National Gambling Support Network and NHS combined has really started to change social perceptions around gambling harms. But it's still that untapped potential there of where we can take this and where it can go. So when I look to decision makers to, what can they really be doing here, is that invested buying. We have the lack of now a national strategy for gambling harms, and I've always called and long called for that gambling harm sits outside of health. It sits outside of the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. It is a whole system approach, as we said. It's a cross-departmental government issue and needs to be written into all strategy. And for me, the Ministry of Justice still haven't got that when I'm looking at justice. I don't think it's on par with drug and alcohol. So when I bring in around recent reports that have just been released around the intensive courts for drug support, it did mention in the report around other impacting factors. Will gambling sort of come into that? I'm not too sure. But yeah, prison and rehabilitation for gambling and addiction. Is it the best place? Possibly not. I say possibly not. It's not. After being there myself, it's not. And yeah, what can we be doing? And why are the people not listening? Why are ministers and decision makers not listening?
Why do you think they're not listening? What do you think it is?
Personally think it's, if we don't approach the problem, it doesn't exist. I think it's that sort of, are we going to open up Pandora's box here? Are we adding another layer of things that we need to do? And when we look at staffing ratios, prison crisis, staffing retention of staff, are they actually going to have the capability to train everyone to understand gambling harms? What are the support pathways? What are the referrals that can be made? Probably not, because the churn of staff is so high, the retention rates are low, and the ratios of staff. I mean, when I was in prison, there was around 96 prisoners to 2 prison officers, and they were just firefighting. All they were doing was dealing with the most emergency of requests, and that was about it, because actually what more could they do? There's no person-centered approach. Now, in turn, if we want to start incorporating that means more money and more investment. And when we have a government who are tightening the purse strings, let's say, do they really want to start having conversations around commissioning projects or expanding expenditure? Probably not.
Yeah, so there's something, again, about that acknowledging that there's a challenge, acknowledging there's an issue. And there's something about, I guess, how we operationalize that, isn't there? Because I'm a big relationship fan, as you know, in terms of how we can build meaningful relationships. Because I guess from my practice, that's the thing that supports people, isn't it? You create a space that's trusting, where you can feel safe enough to talk about some of the things that you maybe feel ashamed of or regret, or things that really challenge you. That relationship, that trust is so important, isn't it? And I think the challenge is that systemically we have environments that have got pockets of trust. There's individuals, isn't there? And I always, even in terms of some of the prison work we do, we always know the people to go to. This is the officer I trust rather than this one here. But to be consistent, I think, when we talked about preparing for this, we talked about consistency, wasn't it? That knowing what you're going to get, I guess, when you navigate this space, but knowing that if we created opportunities where people could really be seen and heard, then that's where you would be able to unearth some of this stuff. But the challenge is, isn't it, that people might not know what to say about that or do with that, which is why, that kind of reaction that people had of like, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that. That might just be because they just didn't know what else to say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is where let's push it out to the experts. So there is great support, there's great treatment, there's great aftercare services out there. Let's hand over to them. And the biggest experts is lived experience, the individuals who have walked the walk and talked the talk. And I've long called for as well a lived experience gambling harm justice board, on the back of really recently the amazing work that the Women's Justice Board are doing. And I thought, okay, well, if that is being so effective, then why can we not replicate that into other areas to instruct some meaningful change? I'm waiting on responses on that. I'll be quite open and frank, waiting on some responses on that. I think I'm moving more into, I'm going to set this board up on a voluntary basis to get that combined voice of lived experience out there, and look at design of the justice system from start to finish. Because I've mapped out from my personal experience missed opportunities, where the referrals could have been, how we can screen in that collaborative manner, which you've just alluded to. And I think actually the work is done, the work is there. Let's do it. Let's get it in place. And gambling harm affects so many other things, which could have a reduction. When we look at health, finance, housing, homelessness, etc. How many individuals are leaving prison with homelessness and all those things I've just listed, which could then be pushing them into gambling to win money? I did gain some research whilst in prison around the prevalence of gambling, because I thought I'd take it upon myself to do so. And I carried out a lot of problem gambling severity index and core 10s. Now, that's the way you monitor sort of someone's gambling level. And is it what they class as problem gambling. I hate that term, but that's the way it is at the moment. And the prevalence was high. Over half of the people I did these tests with were scored problem gambling, and it wasn't always to do with their index offence. Actually, gambling harm wasn't brought up at all. So yeah, the prevalence is high, collaboration is needed, and there are services out there raring to go.
So there's something about the knowledge is there, but maybe it's not where we need it to be. And it's about centralizing that knowledge and thinking, right, okay, we've done all the hard work. We've done a lot of research in this area, which, you know, we have essentially. Now it's about what can we do about that? And in terms of your motivations, like going back to that, you talk a lot about, you know, we need to act on these things, and these are all the things I've done. And I know very much so that takes a lot of energy, right? How do you maintain your hope in this? Because I know there's probably lots of people out there, and certainly all the people that we've had on that are part of Justice 2.0, they all want the upgrade they're fighting for, right? Yeah. So we're the early adopters that are just like, right, we're going to dedicate our life to this change to make justice more effective and humane. But it takes energy, doesn't it? So I guess where do you refuel, and how do you refuel in the work that you do? Because I imagine it can be lonely sometimes.
It can be. I get my fuel from individuals going through exactly what I went through. So in my work as a recovery coach, peer supporter in the gambling harm space, I come across so many individuals who are in touch with the criminal justice system. I mean, just this past week, I've had 2 individuals that have reached out in absolute dire straits, don't know where to turn, don't know what to expect, first time in contact with the justice system, and absolutely no support. So until change is coming, and change happens, I will keep being that beacon. And like I say, I'm fueled from individuals going through. Just this morning as well, a phone call come through. Oh my God, Ben, I've got sentencing tomorrow. It's come out of nowhere. What do I need to pack? What do I need to take? Is there any support for gambling in prison? Can I have your address to add on so you can come and visit and can call if I do need anything? Now, when you're carrying the baton, I mean, I am going to say there's great pockets of work being done out there. So I'm not going to rule out, that the great pockets of work that are being done. I know up in the North, Beacon Counselling Trust are doing some great work. In the East Midlands, Break Even are doing some great work, and GamCare are doing some great work in H&P Ramby. So there is great pockets of work being done. So I don't want to come on and everyone think, oh, why is he saying there's nothing? There is stuff, but it does need that whole buy-in. And yeah, if everyone could just listen to the despair that the people that come to me are in and what I was in, I think they would all as well be driven for change. And I think that's where the lived experience coming in would be, it's vital.
I think there's something about the humanity of it in terms of no one wants to be there. No one wants to have that. No one wants to have that kind of cloud and that challenge and that struggle in their lives. We do the best with the resources we have. And I think from listening to what you're saying, there's something there that motivates you in terms of being able to help just that 1%. I think and I absolutely resonate with that. But I think there's also something there that it is so hard to hear people suffer, isn't it? It's so hard to see. And particularly if you've been there and you've experienced that yourselves. I think lived experience has got that amazing ability to connect with people and I guess fast track trust in a way I've never seen and I could never do if I didn't have that lived experience. So I think, I will always be an absolute advocate for lived experience. But like you say, there's also that kind of, it sounds like there is, of course, in terms of our work, thinking about it, those pockets of really wonderful practices that are happening that you just think if we could just apply all, if we could create some kind of plug and play, and I know it's going back to the kind of software analogy, but I just think we've got some amazing stuff going on at H&P Lewis at the moment. So they've got these kind of, like you would have kiosks in your private prisons. It's like a kiosk that people have. They talk about in terms of resettlement. So all debt prior to release, I think they put it this charity that's come in and they're able to gain some support and manage that before they get out. Whether it's around the screening. I know our guys did an induction around gambling harms just so that they could educate the guys coming in and saying, look, these are some of the bits of advice we give you. All of that stuff, if you put that all together and then consistently shared that out, for me, there's something about people have to be thirsty for it, don't they, or receptive to it.
100%.
And all I can see is just this reactive culture, like you say, with your 96-2, ratio, that is like a small part of the bigger system, isn't it? That you've got
100%.
loads of much larger fires than seemingly gambling harms,
Yep.
and they're all being put out. Overcrowding, for example, or violence, skyrocketing, without thinking they're actually connected, when from what you're saying they are.
100%. And I think there's something for me around, talking about release of prisoners and that aftercare support. So many people are being let down at the moment in terms of, when I was released from prison, I was released with no medication, no signposting, no referrals done for any form of support service. And I've had to come out and go to the GP, get my own medication, get my own referrals for health conditions that I've got, and then get back into my own sort of gambling harm world and space of recovery for myself and helping others. Now, if that's just me, how many does that emulate across, across? And there's a thing for me where it does look at that sort of public health approach in terms of gambling, is an aftercare service of gambling. It helps with financial management, habitual sort of, thoughts and processes, feelings and behaviors that are associated with that, and beyond. Gambling harm and recovery doesn't just stop because you've been put in prison. And upon release, a designated aftercare service to rebuild lives, really, where the gambling isn't so prevalent, and start to rebuild the lives. But yeah,
tough one. Okay, so messages then. So if someone's listening to this and they are currently in that space where gambling harms is really kind of having a massive impact on their lives, what message would you send them to help them along the way, even just like 1%? What kind of things might you say if they're listening?
So I would say anyone struggling with gambling harm, call the National Gambling Helpline, reach out for support, speak to a loved one. The fear that you have inside your head of how is this going to pan out is probably 10 times worse than actually how it's going to be. So speak out, get the weight off your shoulders. Call the helpline, visit the support websites. From calling the helpline, you can be in treatment within 24 hours. Some areas you can be assessed and in treatment within 24 hours. And it's going to be probably one of the best things you'll ever do, because actually life beyond gambling and in recovery is so much better than any life gambling. So if you are struggling, the biggest thing for me is reach out, access support, speak to loved ones, and start to build up that support network where actually you can have a life free from gambling.
And messages that you would give professionals, prison officers, probation officers, what message would you give them? Educate,
learn, be as empathic as possible, and just take a vested interest in actually what prisoners have when they're coming through. And I scope this out as well to the police service and the probation service, looking at it as a whole. Justice is gambling harm is only going to get worse, and the reason it's only going to get worse is as we move into a digital age, which we're already in, and the new restrictions that are coming in around legislation, people are going to be moving to illegal gambling markets, unregulated sites, which they are now. But I believe it's only going to get, tenfold worse. And unless you are aware of how people are feeling, how to deal with it, the consequences are huge. So what could be missed is ultimately suicide, people taking their own lives. And that's the harsh reality of where gambling takes people to, if they're just left without sort of any form of support or treatment, isolation, feeling alone. And no one has to feel alone. You could just be that voice. And I'm not asking everyone to become gambling harm experts, but just to say, I understand that. Do you want to talk about it? Give people the time of day. But if you don't have the time of day, find somebody that does. Find someone that does. Get gambling harm, I'd like to call them mentors within prisons. 100% there will be individuals in recovery within prisons, recovery champions, gambling harm peer champions. Some do it, but again, it's very drug and alcohol focused when we look at recovery champions, and bringing that on board just to assist from an operational level. But learn, educate, and just be there and listen in a person-centered manner.
Love it. And finally, your message to the Ministry of Justice.
Well, my message to the Ministry of Justice would very much be there's a system out there of aligned services in which, with the correct funding, could absolutely support on a national level gambling harms. And that could be police, prison support, pre-prison support, post-prison release support, and aftercare. The services are there. They just need to be tweaked to have a designated, I would like to call it the gambling harm criminal justice support network, and a coordinated approach for everyone, have a lived experience advisory board, which advises into the Home Office and the Ministry of Justice to really work on the strategy and the need from lived experience, and investing some money into this. And actually the benefits longer term, when we look at reoffending rates, will be huge. Yeah, have that buy-in, listen, and then do some action. Research is out there. Like you say, you guys have done research, Howard League, all of those recommendations have been sitting there for years and nobody's picked up on it. So now's the time. I've just got to a point where I am going to keep knocking at doors, because I don't want to be sitting here in 5 years' time still looking at the same recommendations around the criminal justice and people still going through the worst time of their lives without any form of support or guidance. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much. If people want to get in touch with you, to pick your brain, to talk about how they can get more involved in the cause and this kind of upgrade that we need, how might they get in touch with you, Ben?
So LinkedIn, Benjamin Howard on LinkedIn. Anyone could drop me an email at benjaminleehoward89@icloud.com. Happy for that to be out there. Drop me an email, and that is for professionals and beyond. So if you're working in a sector in which somebody is experiencing gambling harm, you're not quite sure how to do with it, and it's in touch with criminal justice, sort of send them our way, and then I can align them to some tailored support across the current network. So yeah, always open for a chat and see how we can progress this forward.
Yeah, wonderful. And I guess also for those people that are out there that maybe aren't in our space but are listening to this, I think sometimes there's a great book called Silo Effect that is all about how do we get people from outside our echo chamber in to help solve those problems in a whole systems approach, which you talk about, Ben. So if someone's listening and thinking, do you know what, this might work based on what Ben's just told us, then please do reach out. You can also reach out to us, of course, at info@growthandswornbelong.com. You can learn more about Justice 2.0 on our website, and this is obviously on YouTube and through our podcast. But if you want to come and present, if you want to talk about what upgrades you'd like to see to create a more effective justice system that promotes a compassionate and informed culture, then please do get in touch. But just finally to say thanks so much. It's been really nice to talk to you about your upgrade, and wish you the best. Stay in touch, and we're here to help.
Thank you for having me.